Northside family, we're glad that you are here this morning. If you are willing and able, please stand as we worship and song. Saturday was silent, and surely it was through. But since when has impossible ever stopped you? The Friday's disappointment, the Sunday's empty too. But since when has impossible ever stopped you?
This is the sound of the dry bones rattling. This is the praise make a dead man walk again. Hope in the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. This is the sound of the dry bones rattling.
Pentecostal fire, stirring something new. Yeah. You're not gonna run out of miracles anytime soon. Resurrection power runs in my veins too. Yeah, I believe there's another miracle here in this room. And this is the sound of the dry bones rattling. Praise make a dead man walk again. Open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. This is the sound of the dry bones rattling. God is able to save and deliver and heal and restore anything that he wants to. Just ask the man who was thrown on the bones of Elijah if there's anything that he can do. Just ask the stone that was rolled at the tomb in the garden. What happens when God says to move? Yeah, I feel him moving it now. I feel him doing it now. I feel him doing it now. Do it now. Do it now. This is the sound of the dry bones rattling. The praise make a dead man walk again. Open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. Open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. It's open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. This is the sound of the dry bones rattling. Amen. You guys can take a seat this morning.
Good morning, Northside. I'm Libby.
And I'm Libby's husband, Strad, and we're so excited that you're joining us for worship this morning.
If this is your first time here at Northside, welcome. We're so happy that you're here. There's somebody at the welcome desk just outside the sanctuary doors that would love to answer any questions you may have and give you a gift to say thank you for being here with us today. So make sure you stop by on your way out. Also, please text NEW to 833-219-1754 for more information about Northside.
As you know, one of our most important ministries is our food pantry. With this ministry, we're not only able to offer bags of groceries to those in our community, but we also provide Davidson Elementary with 10 bags of groceries every month. With only a few months until school starts, we will be having a food drive the months of July and August to stock our shelves for the fall. In the back of the sanctuary, you will see a table set up with all the groceries we need to fill just 2 bags. We've also printed a grocery list with everything listed, so make sure you grab one on your way out. If you would rather donate money or gift cards for the purchase of groceries, there's a box on the back table. Again, this ministry truly makes a difference, both in our community and in the lives of Davidson families. Thank you so much for your generosity and continued support of our food pantry.
Youth group on Wednesday, August 13th at 6:30, we'll be having a bonfire at the Miller Farm in Holtz. We will send out the address in a group text, or you can contact the church for more details.
We would love to know that you're joining us this morning, whether today is your first time here or you've been a member of our Northside family for years. You can do this by filling out a Connect card. These are a great way to consider and commit to next steps that God may be calling you to in your walk of faith. They're also a great way to let us know how we can be praying for you. Connect cards are on the back table or in the Northside app. If this is your first time in Northside, please fill out one in person and leave it at the welcome desk, or you can drop it in a black pedestal on your way out.
If you would like to give an offering this morning, you can do that in person, on our website, or through the app. To give in person, you can drop your gift into the black pedestal at the back of the sanctuary. Your giving makes a difference, so thank you for helping support the work that God is doing through Northside.
That's all announcements we have for you today. If you are willing and able, please stand and join us as we continue to worship this morning.
for my waking breath, for my daily bread. And I depend on you, and I depend on you for the sun to rise, for my sleep at night. And I depend on you, and I depend on you. You're the way, the truth, and the life. You're the well that never runs dry. I'm the branch and you are the vine. Draw me close and teach me to abide. Where the Spirit leads, as I'm following, and I depend on you, and I depend on you for the victories still in front of me. I depend on you. Yes, I depend on you. Oh, you're the way, the truth, and the life. You're the well that never runs dry. I'm the branch and you are the vine. Draw me close and teach me to be my strength, my song in the night. Be my all, my treasure, my prize. I am yours, forever you're mine. Draw me close and teach me to abide. When I pass through death, as I enter rest, and I depend on you, and I depend on you for eternal life, to be raised with Christ. I depend on you. Yes, I depend on you. Oh, you're the way, the truth, and the life. You're the well that never runs dry. I'm the branch and you are the vine. Draw me close and teach me to abide. Be my strength, my song in the night. Be my all, my treasure, my prize. I am yours, forever you're mine. Draw me close and teach me to abide.
Amen. You guys can take a seat this morning.
Good morning, Northside. We now pause for our communion service in memory of Jesus' death on the cross. We invite you to join us after a brief message and prayer in partaking of bread, which represents Jesus' body, and juice, which represents his blood. A reminder for those who are with us in person, there are communion elements in the back. They are double cupped with juice in the top cup and bread in the bottom cup. It's often been said that Jesus came to the earth to do two things: to live a perfect life as an example to us, and then to die for our sins. It would seem reasonable to suggest that the dying part wasn't necessarily a separate part but instead another aspect of the example to us part. In Luke chapter 9, verses 22 and 23, the author records Jesus foretelling his death and telling his followers they must be willing to likewise deny themselves. The Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and scribes and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And he said to all, if anyone will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. The Greek word translated as deny literally means say no. The word is mostly translated as some form of deny, but also as disowned and refused. In Hebrews chapter 11, we read a brief highlight of many different Bible characters, usually beginning with the phrase by faith. For example, by faith Noah, by faith Sarah. And the section about Moses includes this. By faith Moses, when he was grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. The Greek word translated refused is the same word Jesus used in saying we must deny ourselves daily. So, Moses refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He said no to, he denied that privilege, that life. The text goes on to say of Moses, he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He considered the reproach of Christ greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking to the reward. By faith he left Egypt, not being afraid of the anger of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. And the denying that Jesus did in dying for us should remind us to say no to ourselves, to refuse what the world has to offer. Paul reinforces what that looked like in Jesus and what it should look like in us. In his letter to the Philippians, in chapter 2 of that book, Paul says, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interests of others. Have this mind among yourself, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. And being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Let's pray. Dear God, our Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for Jesus that he said no to his divinity, that he refused the trappings of divinity that were so rightfully his. And he came to earth and became one of us, lived among us, and died for us so that we might enter into your kingdom and his kingdom. Today, may we reflect on these matters as we partake of these hymnals. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
I'm Amaya Woodward, and today I'm getting baptized.
Talk to me a little bit about your faith background. How long have you been coming to Northside? What brought you to Northside?
I grew up in St. Joe, and at 18 years old, I changed my last name to be part of a family. Ever since I came to Kansas City, a lot of people has been supportive.
What brought you to Northside?
My mom drove Uber, and she happened to pass the church and wanted to check it out. So she came by herself to check it out, and then ever since that day, she brought her family, and we've been attending Northside since then.
What has helped you grow the most in your faith?
Reading the Bible and listening to sermons and learning more about God every Sunday and every day, and hearing other people talk about him. And
Did you go through Starting Point?
yeah,
Talk to me about Starting Point.
Starting Point at first was a little bit I was a little bit nervous at time because I didn't know anybody. But learning at starting point was good. I mean, learning about God more and how starting point works and yeah.
So, tell me what you have come to believe about Jesus.
I believe he saved people and he saved us and
Why do you want to follow Jesus?
to learn more about him and see where he takes me from here.
Has anyone in particular been helpful in your faith journey?
Strad. Strad's been my number one person since coming to this church, and he's always prayed with me and asked how I do, and just seeing him every Sunday at church helps me know that I can go to him if I need him, or he's a good person.
Is there anything that you would like your Northside family to know about you?
Well, I'm shy at first, but other than that, I can be a good person to talk to and be there for them if they need me. Or
How has Jesus impacted your life today?
he's made my life better since I moved here, and he's been the person I could talk to when I have nobody else to talk to, and I feel like I have him by my side every time I go somewhere or just need to talk to somebody. My name's Amaya, and I decided to follow Jesus.
So Amaya is going to get baptized second service, but we wanted to show you that video so you know that's going on. And hey, she's in the back. I didn't even see her sneak in there. There we go. So make sure you congratulate her and welcome her into the family and all that. We still have weird things going on technology-wise in the building. If you haven't figured out, that's why the lights are the way they are. And hey, the digital fast thing has worked for the building for sure. One of the things we'll talk about today is just smartphones. They're arguably the fastest globally adopted technology in history. It took radio and television some 30 years or so to reach the point where 50% of the United States population had one. 30 years. It took landline phones over 50 years to get to a 50% adoption rate. The trouble with running lines and all that kind of stuff. Mobile phones in the pre-smartphone era took about 12 years to hit 50 million users. So 12 years for people to get a cell phone. I remember when they first came out, I was like, who would want one of those things all the time? Seems silly, but the first smartphone, or what is the first smartphone? First phone we ever got, we got a phone when Nicole and I were engaged. I got her a phone so that we could communicate when she was traveling back and forth to work. We were living about 30 miles away, and she only turned, I don't know if you remember the whole nights and weekends deal, right? Like it's cheaper after like 9 o'clock and that kind of stuff. Well, she only turned that phone on when she needed to make a phone call, and I about lost my mind a couple of times trying to get a hold of her. Like, turn it on. It was like, it's too expensive to turn on all the time. The idea that would someday become a technology that everybody would have. It took 12 years till about everybody seemed to have one. It took 5 years, 5 to 7 years to hit global penetration. And since then, 87% of the world's population owns a smartphone. So when the smartphone rolls out, it took about 5 to 7 years for globally to be kind of adopted, and then it went crazy. And now well over 90% of Americans own one. That speed and adoption is fueling the speed of associated technologies and platforms like social media. It took only a couple of years to hit 50 million users for things now like generative AI. It only took ChatGPT a couple of months to hit 50 million users. So having that thing in your hand all the time has just sped everything up. It took Facebook a while to reach that, and then Snapchat and Instagram were a little bit faster, and then now the adaptive AIs and all that kind of stuff is just kind of taken over. Smartphones have disrupted the music industry, photography, education, GPS navigation, how we consume news, the weather, how we watch videos, access the web or email, how we consume social media, or we meet now potential soulmates, dating, how we control appliances in our homes, how we board airplanes, how we book a ride to the airport, how we order food, how we unlock our vehicles, and how we drive, and how now we have a flashlight and a calculator and a video camera with us at all times. I remember my teacher in high school going, "You're not always going to have a calculator with you." Yep. Somehow, though, most of us are realizing that smartphones seem to be taking more from us than they're giving. How's it going for you? Is your smartphone the last thing you look at before going to sleep? Is it the first thing you reach for when you wake up? Do you feel busier than ever and somehow less productive? Do you end each day feeling mentally exhausted? Do you have trouble focusing on just one task at a time? Do you feel like your attention span is weaker than it used to be? Or do those close to you feel like your attention span is weaker than it used to be? Hopefully you've been going on this journey with us. We're starting our third week of this thing called the digital fast. And maybe as you've gone through, hopefully you've discovered some habits. Maybe you've begun to unbreak some habits, maybe rewire your routine to break that stranglehold that so many of our devices have had on our lives, and we begin to put them in their proper place as a tool, a utility, not a distraction or worse. And I want to tell you, I've been really encouraged and pleased by some of the feedback I've gotten from some of you about your experiences, some of the conversations that you've had with each other, and conversations that you've shared with me about families just trying to get away from their phones more. Like, maybe this is not a total fast, but hey, we see this as a problem, so we're trying to reduce that usage, and you put it aside. And hopefully you'll be more comfortable going longer periods of time away from those devices, away from your phone or social media. We've had so far over 80 people in the church who have tried the app, and I know that's such a funny thing to talk about this digital fast, and we have an app that you can use. There's 80 people that have been on it, that have at least logged one session on it for our church, which is pretty good, and there's a couple of people who have tried to have it in their phone. For whatever reason, it just doesn't log it. They've shown me. They're trying to, it's so funny how we see the little digital dashboard to see who the leaders are and all that kind of thing, and they're like, "I just don't want you to think I'm not doing it. I'm trying. See, nothing happens." Like, they're going to be in trouble with me for not doing it. You're not in trouble with me for not doing it. But I know that there's more than 80 people, at least, who have tried it. I hope that you've seen some of that. I've seen teens all the way to senior adults who are doing it, and they're trying to redeem that time. And I want to thank you for giving it a shot. I think it's created some interesting family dynamics and conversations. We had one last night. We had some friends from Olathe that came up to see us, and we went out to dinner, and we were playing cards last night with Lily was playing. So there's 5 of us playing, and we wanted to we were telling them a story about something that happened in our family group chat a few weeks ago, and it was hilarious, and we wanted to show a picture and a video on it, but all 3 of us, Nicole and Lily and I, had all put our phones in that mode on the app, and we'd flipped it over on the thing, and nobody wanted to end it. So I wanted to flip it over and show them this thing. And so I was the last one to respond, the whole nose goes thing. I was like, what? So I was last. And I had to flip over my phone to show them the video and the picture that was on our family chat. It's so funny, just like, I don't want to do it. Some of you have gotten really competitive, right? Some of you, it's easy. I talked to Al today. Al's killing it on the leaderboard this week. He started back to school this week, and so he just had more. But one of the interesting things he said to me, he said, this is really easy to me getting a lot of time because both I'm at work, but now when I'm in that dead time, instead of just doom scrolling, I flip that over and I go for a walk. Right? Several of you are doing things like that. And this is not, I want you to understand, this is not a value judgment if you're on the leaderboard, right? The whole idea is, let's just figure out how to break some of those habits. I've found myself this week doing some things without my phone that I would not have done previously. I left the house to go on a walk and left it there and just went, you know what, I'll be back in half an hour, and it was fine. And I've left it in the other room a couple of times this week. Things that I would not have normally done. I hope you're finding some of those things for you. Some of us, if we do that and we start getting that itch, where is it? That might say something to us of we've been too attached to these things. How do we break that? We talked a couple of weeks ago about how Jesus told us in John 10:10, the thief comes to only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. And man, we can see how this embrace of these devices has subtly led to the stealing of our time, destroying our intimacy and some of our relationships. In very real senses, it has led to death. There's a mental health crisis in our teens, and it has grown over our dependence and addiction to our devices. As that's grown, that's gotten worse. Last week, we talked about how our devices tap into this idea a little bit that we can be like God, that we can know anything at any time, right? We can be anywhere at any time. And yet, there are limits that we were made for, and those limits are for our protection and to reveal to us how unlimited God is. So today I want to anchor kind of to a verse that most of us know. I want it to be our kind of jumping in point, but the thing that keeps bringing us back home. I want to talk about this idea of resetting our minds in a relationship to anything that might master us. And the verse is Romans 12:2. Many of you have known it. You've heard it a million times. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. One of the books that I've been reading to prepare for talking about this issue, and I'm still not all the way through it yet, but I would recommend this to everyone, especially if you are a parent. If you're a parent, especially with kids in the house, this is a book called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. And it is a fascinating book. It's a researcher. Understand, he is a professor and a researcher. He's put out some other good books. Interested to see how engaging in faith communities can address what he sees as a shared societal issue, which is this mental health crisis and the changing of childhood that is almost universal now because of this embrace of the devices and the way we've gone about it, how it has changed from what used to be kind of a play-based childhood to now what he calls a phone-based childhood. And there's a lot of data and graphs and stuff in this book that kind of track with it. Pretty early in the book, he anecdotally talks about multiple conversations he's had with parents about their struggle with both their kids' mental health and their behaviors and their approach to the use of the smartphones. And he says this: no matter the pattern or severity of their story, what is common among many parents is the feeling that they are trapped and powerless. Most parents don't want their children to have a phone-based childhood, but somehow the world has reconfigured itself so that any parent who resists is condemning their children to social isolation. We've heard of FOMO before, right? This fear of missing out is a big thing that drives us. It's a major fear in driving us to conform to the patterns that we see around us. And it feels like sometimes there's nothing we can do, especially by ourselves. We want and we need support. We need other people to be doing these things with us. Social scientists call this the collective action problem. It's a situation that is too big for any one person to feel like they're making a difference. But if done in community, we feel that collective support, we take collective action, we're more likely to act. In his book, he has 4 suggested norms for parents. He says that if parents would kind of universally adopt this, and really churches could be a driver for this, these 4 things, this would greatly help our children. The first one, his first kind of norm is he says no smartphones before high school. Typically that's around 14 years old. He says your first device should not be a smartphone. Have a flip phone, a light phone, a gab phone. This is the initial reasons that most of us have had for giving a kid a phone is for them to be able to get a hold of us when we're separated, right? Or vice versa, when they've had sleepovers or we had school activities or they're getting off the bus and there's a gap between when they're home and when you're home, and you want them to be able to get a hold of you. And now very few people have landlines anymore, so you want to get them a device so that they can get a hold of you and you can get a hold of them. And that is a legitimate need, so get them a device that meets that need. They can call and receive text messages without the constant bombardment of social media or the lures that are into the cyber world. One of the growing problems with smartphones is to do with the taking and sharing of inappropriate pictures. It's exploded across all age groups, but it is particularly concerning among teens. One of the issues associated with that has become the exploitation and the enticement of children. And that should feel heavy, and you might feel a little uncomfortable to talk about, but it is necessary for us to do so. In January of 2024, the Senate held hearings confronting big tech and social media companies about their lack of protection. There's been the rise of a new crime that has come through these devices and through many of these apps. It's got a name called sextortion. This is where a predator uses a fake social media account to trick a minor into sending explicit photos or videos of themselves and then threatens to release them unless a victim sends either money or more of these pictures or does more things. In 2021, there were a total of 139 reports of financial sextortion. It's a new term that the government kind of came up with to describe this. And in 2021, there were 139 in the whole year. 2 years later, only through the month of October, that rose to 22,000 reports in 2 years. In 2016, journalist Nancy Jo Sales, she released a book titled American Girls. She had hours of interviews with teen girls around the country who shared about the predatory practices of adult men through their phones and through social media, and she suspected that, but she also shared that nude photographs have become kind of a currency, where boys try to persuade girls to send nude pictures of themselves, which they then exchange among their friends, or they use them to gain access to things like alcohol. And the prevalence of the behavior is explained a little bit like this. When girls' nudes are sent around, it can be devastating to them, and it often begins a round of cyberbullying, but for some reason, boys, they often send such pictures of themselves as bait to entice a reciprocal nude. A high school girl named Nina is quoted telling Sales this: "A girl who sends naked pictures, she's a slut. But if a boy does it, everyone just laughs." And these are not isolated incidents. This is the culture in which our kids are in all the time. And nobody gives their kid a phone thinking, hey, I just want to invite you into this adult world. But it's happening over and over and over. His second norm that he would suggest is that just say no to social media before 16. Before 2020, there really weren't many studies about both the effects of smartphone usage and social media. We all just jumped into these platforms without thinking much about the long-term effects on us or our children. But today, there's more and more research that is making clear that the combination of social media and smartphones have given rise to a wave of depression, of anxiety, as well as suicidal ideation that has particularly affected our teen girls more than any other group. Chapter 6 of his book, The Anxious Mind, it's entirely devoted to the subject of why social media harms girls more than boys. Now, understand the research shows that boys are also harmed by social media, but the claim isn't just that girls are somehow weaker than boys, but there are very real reasons that have to do with puberty and how generally girls and boys relate to one another that has made social media more toxic for girls. As part of the summation of chapter 6, it says this: experimental studies show that social media use is a cause, not just a correlate, of anxiety and depression. When people are assigned to reduce or eliminate social media for 3 weeks or more, their mental health usually improves. Girls use social media more than boys, and they prefer visually oriented platforms like Instagram and TikTok, which are worse for social comparison than primarily text-based platforms such as Reddit, which is bigger with boys. But you know this, that when you've gone away from social media use for just a time, you tend to feel better. His third suggestion is phone-free schools. In Missouri, this is already happening. A new state law will take effect next school year, not this year, but many of our local districts have enacted similar policies that will begin this year. The idea is to give kids an 8-hour break, to let time in the lunchroom be used to develop social intelligence, people skills, not to just numb out on TikTok for 20 minutes. I mentioned that the weekend before we started the digital fast here, I got to attend a dinner with Darren Whitehead. He's the author of those books, and if you still want them, I think we still have like 5 left. If you want to go through them, I would encourage you to go through them. Join us at any time on this fast. But Darren Whitehead, he's the author of the book. He's pastor of a church in Nashville. He's taken his church through this 3 times. Tells a story about the first year he was a little bit nervous, right? Like, I'm going to be a good shepherd. I think this needs to happen, but I don't know how it's going to respond. And overwhelmingly positive, and they've done it 3 consecutive years. But he told the story that Saturday night at that dinner that we went to that his daughter's school district implemented the no cell phone policy the previous year. And he was asking her about it a couple of months into it. And I said, how's it going? Because I know there was a lot of pushback when it happened. Kids were not happy about it. And his daughter told him that for the first couple of days, everybody whined about it. And then by the end of about the first week, nobody talked about it anymore. But then she told him this kind of interesting tidbit. She said the boys play football at lunchtime again. It's an interesting observation. When they don't have these other things to do, they do these things together. And one of the ways that we learn to deal with each other is through play. It's good for our physical and emotional health to be active. But the social skills that happen when we play together, it's invaluable, and it's a thing that has been taken away from many childhoods. In my youth ministry days, I've told you repeatedly about how we'd have these things at camp. The camp that we tend to go to didn't have cell phone coverage, but we also said you're not allowed to have them. And so kids didn't have them for the week. And for a while, those first couple of days, kids were having some withdrawal effects. It was kind of, they might be irritable, might be a little more cranky, and it felt like we were getting nowhere spiritually for like Sunday night, Monday, sometime Tuesday. And then something tended to turn on Tuesday to Wednesday. Usually about Wednesday, there were more conversations happening. There was more laughter happening. They were playing cards together, or they were playing more games together, and stuff would happen. And then it was really interesting because by Wednesday night, it seemed like in that space where there was this relational space, and they were able to hear from God a little bit more. They were able to make some decisions. They were able to confess some sin. They were able to see what had been going on. And it was crazy. People talked about why does this not happen until Wednesday? And I'm like, because the first couple of days, man, you're just fighting the withdrawals. And then some of them will say, man, it's kind of been nice not to be getting text messages constantly for all these days. It's kind of been nice. I don't know what's going on. But then what would happen is we give them their phones back as we get off the grounds. And you're about 1.5 miles from the highway. And by the time you get to the highway, everybody's got cell coverage again, and everybody's face is lit up by the blue light in their phones again. It was nice while it lasted. And we'll admit that it was helpful. But the moment we have access to do something else, we do. Fourth suggestion that he has is just far more free time, free play, and independence. The central claim in Haidt's book is that 2 trends. One, the overprotection of kids in the real world, and the underprotection in the virtual world are the main reasons why children born after 1995 have become what he calls the anxious generation. I know that we are a relatively small church, but I want to remind you that in Kansas City right now, there are somewhere in the neighborhood of a little over 5,000 people who are going through the same material at the same time we are. 5,000 people in our community are doing this from various churches and Advent Health. We're going through this digital fast together. We're being exposed to much of the same material, including these 4 norms at the same time. If enough parents from our church, if enough parents from the greater Kansas City area and greater Kansas City churches, if we decided to adopt these 4 norms, at least the ones that we can control, which are 1, 2, and 4, we'll begin to make some headway on this collective action problem. And the world looks at our reaction to this, and on the one hand it says, this isn't a spiritual issue, and what are you doing? These are tools that everybody has, and you're making a mountain out of a molehill. This is not a big deal. And yet at the same time, many who want nothing to do with faith would also say, this is an issue. And we're too addicted to these things, and it's causing a problem. My kids, I just don't know what to do, and it feels like they're looking for help in a helpless situation. I believe this is an area that the church and Christians Christians can shepherd people into a better way of life. We not only call out the danger that we see, but we help lead to safety. We refuse to conform to the pattern of this world and giving ourselves the space during this fast to maybe just hear and discern what God's good and perfect will is for us. There's a proverb of Solomon that I kind of want to land on. It's a closing thought, but a directing thought. What's interesting to me about this proverb is the only one that I know of that is repeated exactly word for word twice in two separate places in Proverbs. It's Proverbs chapter 22:3. It's also Proverbs 27:12. Exact same words. The NIV version puts it like this. It says, the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. This is one of the navigational principles in one of my favorite books called The Principle of the Path. The idea is that we're all taking these paths, these places that we're going, these journeys in our life. We're not the first people to take them. Many people have taken these paths before, but some of these things we're doing are kind of new adventures, things like smartphone adventures. Not a lot of those things are done ahead of us, so sometimes you need to pay attention to where the path is leading. But as we go, sometimes we can see where that path is taking us, and sometimes we can begin to see that there's danger ahead. And when we can see that where we're headed is not the place we want to go, if we're wise, we course correct. At minimum, we will at least pause and evaluate, and then usually we will adjust our route. As I was studying for this week and I was kind of looking at this verse, I checked a couple other translations because I wanted to verify the whole wording thing, making sure it wasn't just the NIV that had it the same. And I came across something I really like in the CSB Bible, the Christian Standard Bible. It connected with me because, like I said earlier, we didn't know a lot about where this stuff was taking us in the beginning. We just enthusiastically went along for the ride. But now there's so much mounting evidence that the way we use smartphones and social media is bad for all of us, but it's tragically toxic for our children and adolescents. The CSB puts this same verse this way. It says, a sensible person sees danger and takes cover, but the inexperienced keep going and are punished. In light of what we know now, based on the evidence that we've seen and our own experiences that we've had, in light of the common commands of Scripture that do not conform to the thinking of this world, be transformed by the renewing of our minds so that we can know, understand, and implement God's perfect and pleasing will, what is the wise thing to do? There are hard choices that will have to be made, especially for parents. If we're going to lead our families well, there are some hard choices. And I've heard this expression before, and someone I recently knew told me they were writing a book with this title. The title was Choose Your Hard. As it applies here, which hard are you willing to take? Will you make the hard choices that protect your loved one's mental health, the ones that protect your own mental health? Will you make a hard choice and limit your own freedoms for the sake of modeling what a healthy interaction with our tools should look like? Or will you choose the hard of conforming to what the world pushes and try to minimize the consequences? My prayer for us is that we collectively see the danger and that we take refuge. We take refuge that God provides by walking in faith and trusting Him with those outcomes. Let me pray for you. God, thank you for your word and for your promises, for the way you work in our minds when you give you the space. Help us to be more cognizant of that, to allow you to speak into our lives. Help us to be mindful and help us to respond. We pray that in Jesus' name.
Well, if you're willing and able, please stand as we continue to worship in song this morning. And I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whisper love in the dead of night, and you tell
another one. I am free. I am free. I am free. Hell lost another one. I am free. I am free. I am free. Hell lost another one. I am free. I am free. I am free. Hell lost another one. I am free. I am free. I am free. Hell lost another one. I am free. I am free. I am free. Hell lost another one. I am free. I am free. I am free. Hell lost another one. I am free. I am free. I am free. Last time. Hell lost another one. I am free. I am free. Yeah. Because you picked me up. You turned me around. You placed my feet on solid ground. I thank the Master. I thank the Savior. Because you healed my heart. You changed my name. Forever free. I'm not the same. I thank the Master. I thank the Savior. I thank God.
Amen. Thank you all for worshiping with us this week. Have a great week. Teachers, parents, all of you, God bless you. Good luck going back to work. See you next week.